What's going on? It's Technicians Tuesday. This week is all about making those expensive boat batteries last longer, as well as why sometimes they drain down by themselves. Our contest prize this week is a battery tender battery charger, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel and have that notification bell on. If you want to make your batteries last longer, we'll start by talking about cleanliness. Keeping the tops of the batteries clean is important because they can drain themselves just by the dirt that is on top of the battery. If we take our meter here and check the battery voltage, we've got 12 volts in the battery. Then, if we put the red meter lead in the middle of the battery, we're losing 4 volts just across the dirt on the battery. And we can check it all over the battery, it doesn't matter where, there's a constant drain on this battery. As batteries get older, they wear out, and this will ultimately get worse even when we clean the top of the battery. But keeping the tops clean will prolong their life by slowing down this draining process. Another thing, you'll need to know what kind of batteries you have. We won't go into the breakdown of AGMs and flooded and any of that. What I'm talking about and what you need to know is whether they are maintenance or maintenance-free batteries. Maintenance batteries have accessible ports on the top of them so that we can add distilled water to the battery. You never want to add battery acid to these types of batteries, just the water. Once we pop the top off, we can see whether the water level is low or not. You want to bring the water level to about 1/4 inch or so from the top, for this part here on the cap to stick down into the opening. You also want to be careful when doing this. Gloves, glasses, and all the safety stuff need to be used. We'll just pour the water into each cell of the battery until the water level comes up just under the top of the battery. With maintenance-free batteries, you don't need to do any of this. What we do have to do though is make sure the batteries stay charged up. Now the best way to check the charge of the battery is by using a load tester. You've got your standard style analog load tester like this, and you can get these at your local auto parts store, or I'll put some Amazon links in the description below. These just put a huge amp draw on the battery and let you see if the battery holds up while under that load. We are looking to make sure that the battery voltage doesn't drop to less than 9.5 or really 10 volts. Then there are also more expensive ways to check a battery, like using an expensive battery tester like this. You can hook these up and then choose what type of battery you are testing. The cool thing about these are that they give you the cranking amperage percentage to show you the ability of the battery. Basically, how much life is left in the battery. It will show you either to charge and retest, replace the battery, or that it is a good battery. Now there are many different types of chargers, whether we are talking about onboard boat chargers or just your plain battery chargers. The main thing you want to remember is the amperage that we put into the battery. A lot of batteries fail because they get overcharged. The chargers basically just cook the battery until they won't hold a charge anymore. This is most common with boats that have an onboard battery charger, but it also happens if the engine's charging system fails as well. If you are going to leave a charger on a battery for an extended period of time, you want to have it on a trickle charger or really a low amp charger. Something like a 2 amp charger is best. If you leave it on a charger putting out 10, 12, 15 or more amps, this is what will end up cooking the battery, causing it to fail a lot sooner than it should. You don't want to leave your battery charger hooked up to the batteries and on all the time. It's best to only use the battery charger for a day or two and then leave it unhooked for a week or two, alternating back and forth to prevent the batteries from being overcharged. Most new chargers have sensors built in that are supposed to stop charging once they see the batteries are full, but these commonly fail after the charger is only a couple of years old, leaving the charger unchecked and able to overcharge your batteries. Another thing about charging is the amount of time you use your boat for. If you are regularly using your boat, then the engines will be charging the batteries and you really won't even need to use a battery charger. Most engine gauges show you that the engines are putting out voltage and charging right on the gauge. You can also check to see that the engine is charging by simply putting your meter on the battery while the engine is running. You should see somewhere around 14 volts with the engine running, sometimes a little more or less depending on the engine RPMs as well as the age of the engine. If you advance the throttle just a little more, you should see the voltage rise a little if it is under 14 volts. What you don't want to see is 15 volts or 12 volts. That means that the engine is either overcharging or not charging at all. which either of these cases will wear out the battery and shorten its lifespan. We've already talked about cleanliness, but it's also important to keep the battery terminals and terminal connections clean as well. Loose or dirty connections can wear out the battery as well as parts of the engine's starting system. That is because they are not getting the right amount of amperage to do their job. It's like trying to breathe through a straw. Yes, you can do it for a while, but if you do it for a long enough period of time with a small enough straw, you're going to pass out. While your engine parts, on the other hand, they're just going to die, costing you money. That's why you can use something like CRC battery terminal protectant to help keep the connections free from dirt and corrosion. A quick tip on changing the batteries: whenever you do change them, you can put all of the battery terminal connections together with a zip tie. This way a ground wire doesn't get left off whenever you put the connections onto the new battery. This will also help to keep us from hooking up the battery terminals backwards, which will do some serious damage to all kinds of parts of the engine and its rigging system. For all of those that live in colder climates and have to winterize your boats, you probably take your batteries out of the boat for the winter season and store them inside the garage or somewhere that stays fairly warm. This is something that will definitely help to extend the life of your batteries. Putting them on a trickle charger out of the cold weather until next season is the right thing to do. Then putting them back into the boat and having all of your wires zip tied together will help make that process go a little smoother. Having a constant drain on the battery is obviously not a good thing, but thankfully there is a way for us to see if there is something that is draining the battery. You want to be careful doing this because you can damage your meter if too much amperage is sent through it while doing this test. But to see if there is what is called a parasitic draw on the battery, we want to have the battery switch turned to the off position and the key switch off. Then disconnect the ground cable from the battery. Then with the meter set to amps, we will put the positive meter lead to the ground cable and then the negative meter lead to the battery. This is going to show us how much amperage is being drawn out of the battery. It's not uncommon to see a few millivolts, but we don't want to see anything more than that. If there is a consistent draw showing up on the meter, we will want to go through the breakers or fuses that feed all of the boat's components. Then pull them out one by one until we see the draw go away. Then we can troubleshoot that item to stop the parasitic draw from draining out the battery. Knowing how to operate the battery switch is another technique that can help us prolong our batteries because it gives us the ability to control the charging voltage coming from the engine. Before showing you this technique, it's a great time to smash that like button, get subscribed, and drop a comment below including a hashtag batteries for your chance to win the battery tender. A lot of new boats have what are called automatic charging relays or ACRs, sometimes called voltage sensing relays or VSRs. These are isolators that automatically sense which batteries need charged and which don't. These automatically combine the batteries when charging and then disconnect them when there is a draw on the batteries. We can do this same thing by just using the battery switch though. If there is more than one battery in the boat, and normally there will be two batteries in the boat, which is what we recommend for almost any boat that is bigger than a 16-footer and has electronics in it. It should have two batteries, one for the electronics and one for the engine. Then it will have a 4-position or combining battery switch. What you do is whenever you first start the boat, you can start it using either battery 1 or 2. You can even start it twice, checking both batteries to make sure they can start the boat individually. Then once the engine is running, simply turn the switch to the both or combined position, but don't turn it to the off position with the engine running. What this will do is it will allow the engine to charge both batteries while you are running. Then whenever you get to where you are going and are going to turn the engine off, just put the switch to either 1 or 2. This way, if you are there long enough and the radio, bottom fish finder, live well pumps, and washdown pumps drain down that battery, you can switch over to the other battery to start the engine. Then put it to the combined position again to charge up that battery again while you drive back home. This will help to prolong the life of the batteries by maintaining them properly and keeping you from being stranded with a dead battery. Thank you for hanging out with us this week, and we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.